December 22nd, 2018. I will never forget that date. It started out like any other day, any other Saturday. I got up, my wife got up, we had breakfast. She was leaving to go to Houston that day. I went to work. It was electrical maintenance at a flight simulation facility, and I was tasked with changing light bulbs in the parking lot. Driving pole to pole, changing light bulbs. The middle driveway pole was burnt out. So I turned into that driveway, lifted up at the fixture, reached out to grab the fixture and open it like every other fixture. That line shorted out through me when I tried to open that fixture. That's how I lost my arms. When I had lifted up to the fixture, the boom of the lift had come in contact with the 7,000 volt line that ran down that street. I remember reaching for the fixture to open it and being blown back in the lift. I shook it off, and I remember looking at my right arm. I don't remember ever looking at my left. And my right hand was folded over at the wrist, but it was like a rubber glove full of sand. It was semi-solid, but it was limp, useless. I've been an electrician most of my life, and I knew that type of injury, there was a good chance that I wouldn't survive. They say I was conscious all the way to the hospital, and that the ER surgeon picked up my hands and told me I was going to lose them. And I said, yeah, I understand. I don't remember that, but that's what I've been told. And one of the nurses asked me if there was anything I wanted to tell my family. Told her, tell my wife that I love her. And that was shared a month later, and it hit her pretty hard. They had to take off as much as was damaged and detrimental to leaving. That's why my left arm got taken off so high. It took the brunt of it, and it was damaged up further, where they were able to save my right elbow, thank goodness. But once I was released from the hospital and went home, I still had open wounds and that needed to be maintained. But I'm at home and all my doorknobs are round, and all I've got is an elbow to try to grab it and turn it, and that was very frustrating. They didn't work well at all. Living life in what we consider normal circumstances was very hard, very frustrating. When I was in the hospital and realized I had lost both hands and most of one arm, I asked about prosthetics, about what am I going to be able to do, and are there any local prosthetic offices? And there were a few. One happened to be in Irving, which is fairly close. So I heard good things about it, so I decided to go check it out. And I am very glad I did, feel very blessed to have found Arm Dynamics.
So you said you did not wear this one for a couple of weeks?
Right.
Just got sick? And...
Yeah.
My name is Rob Dodson. I'm the clinical manager at Arm Dynamics. Arm Dynamics is a company that focuses on upper limb prosthetic rehabilitation, which is a long fancy word for we treat patients that lose their arm or their hand or their fingers.
You know what? Instead of putting a shim on this side, I think I might actually put a shim on that side.
The field of prosthetics is pretty small to begin with, right? And so in our field, most of our patients lose their leg. And what we found was that upper limb patients, it's a completely different ball game. It's like football, basketball. And so we need to treat upper limb patients differently than we would treat lower limb patients. There's actually categories within this word prosthetics. The first one we can make somebody is what we call passive. And that is usually something that looks very similar, so it's right to left mirror image. It's painted and sculpted to mirror the other side. So cosmetically speaking, it's superior. It's actually pretty amazing the way they look. A body power prosthesis works off a cable and your shoulder motion in order to operate this thing down here at the end. And so those things are extremely robust, and so a lot of times you see a farmer or somebody that's in an industrial setting using those devices. There's a device called an activity specific, which makes sense. It's for a specific activity, such as weightlifting or kayaking or swimming or something like that. And then there's the electric prosthetic device is the one that you see always in movies and on the news and things like that. And really it's actually pretty simple. It's using the muscles that are still there. So our muscles that control our hand actually still, they operate, they contract. And then we can sense that contraction and send a signal down to a little computer processor and a battery and a motor, and it opens or closes.
What's left of my forearm still has muscles in it, and he installed one contact on that side and one on this side, and I have to use a muscle on one side to open, and then I flex the other muscle and it closes, and I can make it look easy now. When I first learned, it was not so easy, and when I went to grab something, hold it, I'd try to pick it up and accidentally open and drop it, and it was very frustrating learning curve. But when that's your new normal, you quickly learn how to operate your device.
He's got a set of electric devices, so a prosthesis that works off his muscles for both sides, and then he's got a set that works off the cables for the body power.
Grab it, you can move it, grab it with both hooks. These hooks are manually powered. These steel cables run up the harness and go across my back, so they pull against each other. I've got to hold one steady so that I can push the other one and get it to open. Then I have rubber bands around the hook. That's the closing force. I wear, I don't know, 6 or 7 on my right side and only about 3 or 4 on my left. But that allows me to grab and hold on to most of the things I want to move. It's really not a long movement of the cable. You just have to, like I said, you have to anchor it, and then it's a short pull to get max open as far as you can.
JJ he's a great guy. He is one of those inspirational stories where most people, I think, would probably, that's it, I'm good. I'm gonna just sit on my couch and watch TV. No, this guy is extremely active. He's now on a bowling league. Like he plays like 3 or 4 nights a week and he's winning. One of our staff went out and played with him and got schooled by JJ. So there's a specific attachment that was made for the purposes of bowling. And it's this little plunger that goes down into the hole.
Underneath this piece of rubber, there's a spring. This bolt preloads pressure on the spring. The spring pushes out. When I pull my cable, it releases some of the pressure on that spring and lets it collapse. And that lets me push into the ball. When I let go of the pressure, it pushes out and holds the ball so I can walk to the lane. And when I bowl, I reach out and that pulls the cable, which lets it slide off and go down the lane.
And so he's figured out the exact moment at which he needs to release the ball through his prosthesis. And the way we designed the device, it looks a little weird because it's actually angled backwards from an extension perspective, so that when he comes back this way and he comes forward, it doesn't push the ball too far in a certain direction.
My top score I got 2 weeks ago, one time only, but I bowled a 283. 10 strikes in a row. But I couldn't get 12 in a row.
Not every person injures their arm or their hand in a tragic way. Sometimes it's just how they were born. And so what we find with kids especially, that they're most likely fine without wearing a prosthesis. They can live their life, they can do the things they want to do up until the point that they can't.
My name is Rachel Groh, and I was born with a congenital limb difference. I was born in Germany, and I was adopted by an American family and brought back to America. I grew up playing like every other kid. I never let my congenital difference stop me. I did gymnastics. I had lots of friends. I always played outside. I've been a very outdoorsy person.
Rachel's one of those unique individuals who just has a spirit about her that is undeniable. I mean, it's when you first meet her, you just immediately feel connected to her. She's just a super positive human being. And it's hard to think of that she would be that way because she was born without fingers on her hand. So what might be called a malformed hand, she's lived her whole life that way. So only reason she's coming in to get a prosthesis is because they tried to do some surgeries to her hand, and the surgery is not working, and now her thumb no longer works. And so now she needs something to just simply grab a cup or hold a bag or something like that.
This is a one-of-a-kind hand. It's a collaboration between Rob and myself. It is passive and wrist-driven, which has never been made before. He was able to create 2 different frames so it would be on a hinge. Passive is just you move the fingers themselves. Wrist-driven allows you to open and close the hand, allowing you to pick up or drop items.
We put parts on her hand that weren't necessarily meant for what we use them for. So it doesn't necessarily look as cosmetic as something like something that matches the other side, but that was because Rachel didn't want it to be cosmetic. She wanted to look robotic.
The fingers themselves can carry 150 pounds each. I cannot carry that, but I've gotten up to about 7 pounds, and I intend to increase that weight amount. I love growing organic vegetables. I think it's very important to be able to feed yourself and also to provide for yourself. So cooking is a very important part of that. If you're gonna grow your own vegetables, you need to know how to cook them. With the prosthetic now, I can do even more as far as my garden goes. I can carry a lot more. I can carry big, heavy pots. It's going to allow me to grow even more vegetables, which means I'll be able to provide more food for myself. Now I can do more things at one time. I can carry multiple items. I can actually cook faster. I can chop my vegetables a whole lot faster. The thing I love most about Arm Dynamics is the care team is absolutely amazing.
I think we look at prosthetic rehabilitation as a comprehensive model, meaning it's more than just the widget that we put on somebody's arm, right? So it's more than the component, it's more than the fancy hand.
The sharper the input, the more it's going to give to your brain.
We have to actually treat the whole person, not just from the fit and the comfort and the function of the device, but also the holistic nature of the human being that's wearing the prosthesis.
Do 5 in both directions.
From the very first visit all the way through the delivery of the hands, I've been fully involved in the entire process. They will adjust anything that needs to be adjusted. They wanted to make sure I was 100% happy. The biggest focus was making it as functional as possible, and I feel like they absolutely achieved that.
So this is our laboratory, and this honestly is my favorite space in the entire building. This is kind of where the magic happens, where we build everything. So we do a lot of plaster work, a lot of grinding on plastic when we make a prosthetic device. We have big machines. We do our own silicone work here. And then the benches are set up to assemble everything. So whether it be a body powered or an electric device, we have all the tools that are necessary in order to do that. So this is a device that we made specific to a patient that was burned with his injuries. And so the inside, you can see this very soft silicone. It's very important for him because he has very fragile skin. And so we needed something that was not going to hurt him every time he put his prosthesis on. But the really cool thing about this, he's about to get married, and he decided he wanted an artist to design basically a tattoo that we then integrated into the look of the prosthesis. So everything that you see on the device is specific to what this particular patient wanted. So this is a very fun project for us because we know it's exactly what this particular guy wants. So this is a device that we're fitting this afternoon to a gentleman who lost 3 fingers. He still has his thumb, but it works off. There's a battery system and a processor, but on the inside you see these little domes. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but these domes rest up against his muscles on his arm or his hand. And then the top, these guys up here will close, and then these guys will open. So once it gets back on him, it'll actually be operational to open and close. And then this one operates based on his finger that's still there, so it actually moves based on that movement of his finger. So it's just another example that he uses when he gets into his prosthesis. So slips in, comes through, zips it up, turns it on, and then he can actually grab things with it. So one of the things that some people, there's a bit of a misnomer that we're scanning people and we're printing things out. And the technology is there to do that, but what we're finding is that we can actually do plaster work and get a better fitting prosthesis currently than we would if I was to 3D print something. So I can take this and I can modify it and I can put more pressure on a person's hand. So this is a partial hand. Obviously, it's someone's hand like this. And we're just changing the shape of that model that we're gonna then pull plastic over. So we're tightening it in certain spots. So it seems like it's really low tech because we're grinding literally into a plaster model. But there are specific things that I'm looking to do in order to facilitate a good fitting socket or a good fitting interface with the patient. So I'm going to show you a few of the devices that we make here at Arm Dynamics. There's a lot of different styles of prosthetic hands and components and things like that. So this is a good example of how the prosthesis is actually built. So there's an inner piece called the socket this particular one is made out of silicone, so it's very soft. And there's a frame that then holds the wrist, and then inside that frame, that's where we hide the batteries and the different motors and things like that. And then at the end, there's going to be some type of hand system that actually connects to the wrist in order to function. So this is what we would consider an electric prosthesis. And then the way these guys work is pretty cool. So this particular device has different grasp patterns. So like our hands, we can grasp this way or to the side. And so this will actually give us the ability to do pointer, or if I change grasp patterns now, I can hold a phone or some type of paper or book or something like that. And then if I swing the thumb over and underneath, then it goes into a different grasp pattern, so like holding a cup or a pen or something like that. They're pretty expensive, and so the funding has to be there in order to get something like this. But my hope is that sooner than later, this will become common practice. Like this will be kind of like what everybody gets. But there are the different hand systems, so there's something like that, and then maybe something a little more basic, but it still operates to be able to provide upwards of 25 pounds of pinch force, which is about the equivalent to the human hand. And then you can actually, instead of having it look like this, you can actually get it painted to match. There's a company here in Dallas by the name of Tech Laboratories that makes custom silicone that will match someone's hand all the way down to like the hairs. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but there are literal hairs and veins painted and molds and things like that into the prosthesis. So these devices can look extremely realistic, but still have the function of an electric prosthesis. So this still applies 25 pounds of pinch force to something to actually grab something like that. So there are also, put that away. So there are devices that are based off cable motion. So if I pull a cable, then it's going to close or open. So this might be something for somebody that is working outdoors a lot, so they're getting dirty or wet. So this is an actual device called the Jaws, which is kind of a cool name, but it actually opens and closes based on a cable pull, and then you can actually increase the force of that compression by pushing this lever up, and then like one of the big uses for this is to use a riding lawnmower, for instance, and things like that. And then there are lots of different attachments that you can look into. So we have a bunch of different attachments that will connect to the end of the prosthesis, different tools, different wrenches, different cutlery, gardening, all sorts of cool stuff. This is actually a violin bow holder. So if someone wanted to play the violin, they would just put their bow into this little apparatus, and then they could play the violin with that. At the end of the day, we have to match the patient with the device. So if someone needs something for outdoor work, then we're gonna give them the tool that's appropriate for that. So if someone needs something that's more for everyday use, and they need different grasp patterns, then there are hand systems that allow for that. So every single person is its own recipe, and we have to match the person with the prosthesis. So that's a thought, right? Just to see if just a better socket.
If not for arm dynamics, I would not have been able to progress as far as I have, as fast as I have. They reworked my sockets as my limbs changed size, changed volume. They had to remake the socket to fit properly, and they've been more than willing to help me through all those transitions so that I can keep working on my new normal, keep learning how to do more and more. And Arm Dynamic has been a very big blessing.
It has just improved my life vastly, and it's definitely worth looking into, and you aren't stuck with what you were born with. There are options out there.
Every day we get this opportunity to rebuild somebody's life. I don't want to come to work and just make something and go home. I want what I do to actually impact somebody's life.